You think that I don't know your sneaky ways. You really think after like 280 shows, I don't know
my sneaky ways.
Hey.
Hello, everybody. Today we're going to discuss the deep subject of how to traumatize people.
Exactly.
Intentionally.
You've done it for several years, not knowing it's unintentionally. Yes, the topic is the difference between holding space and creating a safe space for someone and re-traumatizing them, thinking that we're serving them when actually we're just re-traumatizing them.
And where are we going to do that, Mr. Shayla?
We're going to do that, Bambos, on A Wonderful Chaos. Bambos.
Last show, Andy Shayla. Last show.
I think if we said that last show on every show, at some point, no one's going to show up anymore. So Bambos, big topic, traumatizing as opposed to holding space.
How are you, Andy? It's our last evening together.
Wow.
How are you?
It's the last supper.
Is it emotional for you?
Is it emotional for me? If I feel and allow myself to slow down and think, there's so much change, and yes, if I surrender into it, there's a lot of emotion that comes up.
Yeah.
And the emotion is, it's hard to place, in that when I was young, when there was a lot of change in my life, it would create anxiety and fear. And now when there's a lot of change, it's more like it's like a surrender over and over again. Just surrender. So once the thought comes up, it's surrender. So even when you'll ask me, this is the last show, I don't create a narrative from that. I just surrender, like whatever is going to be is going to be. Yeah. So it's weird to answer, because I also hear myself saying, if I don't say, oh my God, Bambos, it's going to kill me, then in a way it sounds like I'm a bit of a dick.
Well, you are a dick, but
yeah.
Actually, you've answered the way I've been answering it when people ask me, so how do you finance them? It's exactly that, just being present with it and not projecting onto it.
Yeah. I would love to share one story with you, if I may, before we ask you how you are.
Are you asking for permission?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Sure.
So, as some of you know, some of you don't. Bambos took me to a store to get my 5 toes. And part of the agreement with these 5 toes, and I've been making fun of people wearing 5 toes for many years. So to have them on myself is sort of...
5 toes are shoes where your 5 toes are actually being...
They're like separate.
Yeah.
It's like wearing a sock where it's like a glove for your sock, for your foot, basically. So I'm out today. I'm walking down Bilderdijkstraat, and I pass these 2 85-year-old women. I'm on my phone. And then they point down at my feet, and they start laughing at me.
Welcome to my world.
So these are old ladies, Bambos, and the fact that they could look, point at my feet, and laugh at me, it was a special moment. I never thought ever in my life that my attire would not only be bad, but it would be laughable. So that happened today. And for those who just need to see it again, I'm sorry for you podcasters who can't see this, but these are the 5 toes, okay? 5 toes.
They are epic. It's like we're walking barefoot. You're connected to the earth.
I have to admit, I really like
your toes strengthen. The whole sole of your foot strengthens. You should do yoga in them.
My balance felt better today. I could feel, I don't know, I felt much more connected to my surroundings, the ground. I could feel, the deviations in like if I was walking on bricks or if I was walking on gravel or whatever I was walking on, there was just a feeling of being more in tune with that. So that was really nice.
That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah. And guess what, Andy Shayla?
Tell me what.
They have winter versions too. Oh. If you have cold feet.
Yeah, I actually don't know if I have cold feet. I enjoy cold feet. So
yeah.
So that was my day today. How about you?
I've been formulating my men's retreat. Like, I've been making videos, of course. There's
Okay.
been content, but there hasn't been any a page where people can actually go and see. Oh, this is the men's retreat.
Okay. You're making you're creating the product.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the last couple of days, I had a guy yesterday calling. He does men's retreats in Colorado, and now he's in Poland, and he showed interest
Okay.
in co-facilitating in the future, because right now he's pregnant with his wife.
Okay.
So he wouldn't be able to join. And today, a lady called Anna
Okay.
showered me with support in a way that she wants to offer her services for free, create a website for me, make it more professional. And there was a moment where I sat back and she says, "Are you overwhelmed?" Like, actually, in the past, I would have such a hard time receiving. And when I don't go back into that old way of being, then I just see that there's tears, and it's just it really touches me.
Wow.
And then I say I had to go because Andy's calling me to do the podcast.
Who's Anna?
Anna is someone in my network. She's been the PA of one of my clients that I photograph. Okay. And we're connected on Facebook. And she's been looking at my videos, and she says this could be a good thing.
Sweet.
She actually said this will be a good thing if you market it correctly.
Nice. I love that. You're calling it, is it, am I right? Is it being called Into the Wild?
We've been playing with it, also with the name, to call it Into the Wild for Men, or the something.
I'm
anyway.
asking, so you follow the title.
Unconventional.
Unconventional. I like Into the Wild.
And if Anna is watching, she can correct me.
I like Into the Wild.
Oh, for the website though, Into the Wild is taken. So
of course
it will be Into the Wild with the letter for men.
Oh yeah.
So, hi, holding space.
Yes, this is actually a good one for that event, by the way. Indeed. I once had someone in my network, and they would often talk about how they break people.
Yeah.
As if it was a goal in and of itself to break somebody. So they would leave a training that they give, and the person would talk about it. Wouldn't be tracking the experience and saying, oh, this is where they had their experience or their breakthrough, or this is where they felt into themselves. It was more like, I broke them.
He would use those words.
Yeah. Or they all broke. There would be that kind of language. They all broke.
As in they released, they cried.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And in a way, of course, I see that as a beautiful thing. But what I notice as well is that there are a lot of people, in this case and in other cases, that will be traumatized by it.
Yeah.
So it was a kind of a fine line between creating space where people feel safe, where they can reveal parts of themselves, or creating space where the intention is for them to break, right? We use the word break, and then push them in that direction where they feel a bit forced.
Yeah.
They might do it, but afterwards they feel resentment or regret, almost like they've been violated, because they felt as if it had to be done because the group was going there, but they didn't. And even if they went through the routine of, do you feel safe? You can set all the ground rules, but if you aren't feeling into where a person is, then it's easy to blame them for not taking care of themselves. So I've seen that as well. We talked about the rules. You knew that this was going to happen. I've seen that happen a lot as well. After one hasn't held a person in a safely.
I'm smiling because it almost feels like on a very light level, like a normal sales call. I called T-Mobile to check about renewing my contract. I gave him my specs, and the guy wanted to give me an offer if I want.
Okay.
But then I saw, no, you know what? I'm gonna sit with this. And there's but this offer might go away. And I'm like, that's really okay for me.
Okay.
Like, I don't need this offer. I do want to sit with it though before I make any decision. I don't like. And he said that he repeated whatever feels good for you, but he kept on not hang up the phone. I'm like, at some, I'm like, okay, I've said already, I'm going to think about it.
Yeah.
So what prevents you from just ending the call with me?
Yeah.
so so I'll take this into what you said.
Yeah.
It could be done in a very subtle way, of course.
Yeah.
But then there's an energy that needs something from you.
Yeah.
Is what I'm getting.
Yeah.
And
it's subtle, and a lot of times the people aren't even aware that they're pushing it out there.
I've seen that also, where facilitators need the participants to go somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
In order for it to be a success, and if it's not that, then it's not a success.
Then it's not a success. Yeah. I had that a lot with my mentor, right?
Where as opposed to showing up was the success. Mentor
and letting case. One thing I noticed was that, you know, for those that have spent time with me or around, they know Case and my journey with him. It's written in the books.
The last letter, you have to read it.
Yeah, it was quite. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that because I gave a very honest portrayal of Case and his and how he approached his coaching and mentoring. So when I was doing my last letter tour, I told you one of the times I was most flattered was when this woman who I'd never met before read the book, and she says, "Before we talk about anything, I just need to tell you, I really don't like your mentor." And we didn't know one another, right? So just because of how I shared the journey with him, they said, "No, this individual was," and not that was the intention, but if you're honest, a lot of times a mentor will do things from the outside that appear to be wrong or nasty or mean.
Yeah.
Not realizing that there's something far, far richer going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had that a lot in our relationship, in our shows. If you guys watch the first 100 shows,
probably.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, first 100 maybe. Yeah.
Labeled asshole, Gestapo, Nazi.
Yeah, I mean, I was, you know, we'll talk about our audio engineer, who's also a bit of the producer and gives us some guidance in the back end.
Yeah.
Cass Minchley. So Cass told me, he said, "Andy, it's not," although he liked it, he said, "It's not traditional for two people to be on a show and for one of them to mentor the other one."
Yeah.
And it confuses the audience because the audience is waiting for this equal kind of exchange, right? And then if one person sort of teaches, mentors, kind of gives a vision or perspective, then the other people can also feel uncomfortable by that.
Yeah.
They're like, well, who is he to tell him? Especially if you're friends. I remember some of your friends saying that guy you're with is a real asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not seeing that those who saw when I was with Case certainly would have thought Case was also an asshole.
Yeah. They didn't. They just saw that moment, but they didn't see the love that was actually there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the hard thing, is that it's hard for people to understand more than what they're seeing, right? Because you can make assumptions, and that's what we do. We look at our baggage, and then we make assumptions, right?
So, just for the record, Andy has been my coach and mentor, and if you want to know the differences between those two words, we have a whole show about that.
The whole show. What's the difference?
Don't remember which one.
And mentor, and that was a well-watched show. People really enjoyed that one. It was just called Coach versus Mentor. But getting to the topic of this show, which was this sort of difference, when I'm working with someone, it isn't necessarily, like I said, that I will push to get to an emotional charge, but emotions will arise.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is that every facilitator deals with that moment differently.
Yeah.
Like some I've seen do it like, oh, this is what we're trying to get to, like as if like that was the state that now we're there, you know, now we're there. And what I notice is when the emotions come up, it's like a welcoming of something that almost doesn't even need to be discussed, or doesn't need to be pushed at,
or solved,
of course. Yeah. Because it's like that Rumi, the guest house, right? That one beautiful poem that I put in the first book.
We're all walking each other home.
No, that was in the second book, I think. One. First book was the
guest house.
The guest house. Yeah. That all of our emotions are there to be seen and witnessed and welcomed into the house. And if you reject one of the emotions, you're rejecting all of the emotions, right? And so and so what I noticed is that when the tears come up, if you handle them, at least for me and how I've worked, with like love and simplicity, and not like, okay, now let's dig into that. Where do those tears come from? Like forcing this is, it's painful to even hear it, right?
Trying to understand the tears.
Yeah, explain it to me. Like I noticed for me, it's almost the tears, especially when people have shame or association, like treating the tears with utter simplicity, like as if it's just normal, part of our discussion.
Like the rain.
Yeah. Then all
why are you raining?
There's a flow in it. Yeah. There's something that I've noticed. So, and when people aren't comfortable, of course, then they try to solve it. Yeah. How about you? I mean, you are taking your journey and emotions are coming up. Do you see moments when you think, oh shit, maybe I pushed this too hard?
No.
I
mean, funny story. I'm going to talk about my relationship. Me and Anna, we're video calling. We like to send each other screenshots, catching each other in awkward moments.
Okay. Which brings us back to our show yesterday.
Shut up. And in the screenshot, I had a notification from a dating site. This person is interested in you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, Anna messaged me, you're on a dating site? And I'm like, and I called her immediately because I just wanted to make sure that, like, honey, I was on dating sites. I'm not in them. I just didn't know the password. I didn't
delete it.
Yeah. So I just left it. It comes in. I throw it in the trash. I'm not.
Do you look, though? Do you look?
No. I literally just. So after.
I just wanted to see your face and just sort of see if you got defensive or not.
No, I don't look. I just put it in the trash.
Okay.
And then I realized, oh wow, that I can see why that would create a tension in my partner. Yeah. And there's why would I allow that to be there? Yeah, so I called her up immediately because her ex was cheating and having a lot of secrets, like a double life. Yeah. And I kind of knew that could be a potential trigger. So we talked. She trusts me, great, but she did have vivid dreams and
at night.
Yeah, and she said, wow, it was almost like when I had to relive my past, I left my body, but I couldn't. Yeah. Because the pain was bringing me back into my body.
Wow.
But I immediately created a new password, delete the account, finished. But when she told me the dream this morning, I just felt that helplessness. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
But just to hold that space for her or what she needs to move through or go through.
Yeah. In a way, she was traumatized, not by what you did, by what transpired. Yeah, but in a way, I think I'm looking at least in the at least I'd like to focus somewhat on when it's done intentionally.
Yeah. Oh, I would say when people, I'm trying to think, bring it more closer to me if I've had the experience.
Well, I mean, I can give you one experience that wasn't intentional.
Yeah, tell me.
The no experience. Was that what you were thinking before?
Yeah. I did a workshop. It was called The No. And I had people saying no to each other, and I had like 25, 30 people in the room, and then all of a sudden chaos broke, people running out of the room, and I really had to bring people back and hold that space. But I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't realize that the word no would, by saying no, would actually be a thing. Fuck, I just felt that in my body. So so I didn't have an intention that it needed to be something, but I always like to create games where awareness is heightened, and that workshop just went to shit.
Did it go to shit, or would you just say that it was unexpected consequences?
I didn't foresee the consequences, so I would have liked to have actually had talked it out with someone.
Yeah.
And it went to shit for me actually, because I was 3 days feeling pain in my body actually.
Yeah.
I remember I left the workshop that evening. I went to the park and I was on my hands and knees and I was purging. I was shouting and shouting until I lost my voice. It was painful.
Yeah.
I just felt bruised inside. It felt like someone took my organs, hammered them, and put them back. That's how I remember describing the experience. So it went to shit for me because I also took it in, and
you embodied the pain of others. Yeah. When I
is that what you had in mind?
well, that would be an instance of it, and clearly, if you had said, Andy, it was a great session, all of them broke. that would be the flip to not examining the consequences of your behavior. So in a way, I think we do these experiments.
The discovery was
what's this?
I needed a day with them.
To go.
That would have been a day workshop, not 3 hours.
Yeah.
A day, a full day, so that there's integration time and softening and love.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, prepare them, right? It's not like, okay, we're going to jump into an exercise here, not just shout no in each other's face.
The evening had the theme, though. No,
agreed. But it's funny. You didn't necessarily even have a concept of where it might go until afterwards, right?
No, that's because I didn't realize, again, that people have a problem with no. I can say no.
Yeah. So in that case, you can imagine, without going into any detail, the greatest traumas in people's lives will be when they weren't able to say no.
That was the discovery.
And then so to bring it in that quickly without a lot of prep for them to hold that space in a different way, right? Whatever that looks like, which would be different now, clearly. But I mean, that was a game that you learned from. What I think is the challenge is when we have the fact that people were to have by doing that exercise, people were re-traumatized, right?
Yeah.
They lived an experience that was in the back. Now,
I actually had phone calls with half the group that week just to hold space for them.
Yeah. And I mean, you took full responsibility.
Yeah.
But what I've also seen, and that was why I also wanted to make sure, because there will be people, trainers listening to other trainers talk. And when they'll talk about, they broke, I got that language, that perception or that perceived idea of what success is, there's just a danger in people not seeing through themselves. The ego, which needs them to have an experience, which they think is best for them.
Yeah.
And I've seen my mentor, Case, he didn't force tears, but he had his own predetermined vision of what people should experience. And I saw that also traumatized people.
He would hack at people, right?
What do you mean?
Like really?
Yeah, he'd hack. Yeah, he'd hack their brain.
He wouldn't let them escape.
No. And what I saw was that they would often have, and people that do more spiritual practices will know the terminology of like a non-dual experience, where there's a full state of being, seeing yourself almost like where you're out of body. So and then you kind of just laugh hysterically. So he'd push people. I would say, I wouldn't say welcome, they're invited. He'd literally push them to that experience. And what I saw happen was, since it was so important for him to give that experience to them, they would often have it. And while they were in it, they would laugh and have joy and smile. But when they came out of it, they couldn't integrate the experience on the back end. And then they would often have felt sometimes manipulated.
Yeah.
Because they were like, hold on, like what did he do to me? How did that happen? Because they couldn't hold the experience.
It's almost like, if we talk about sex, straight to penetration and no foreplay, getting to know each other, like bam.
Yeah. And it was incredibly valuable for a lot of people. So you can't say, Andy, throw the baby out with the bathwater, because many people had incredible experiences that changed their lives. And it would be important to note that those that were traumatized, they didn't have an opportunity to integrate it with them because there wasn't trust as part of that exchange. Because he had decided, as I said, what he wanted, and he didn't check in with them what they wanted.
It's almost like he took over their decision making.
Yeah.
What do we call that?
Took away their agency.
Agency. Yeah.
And we'd say no one can take away, but there's some people who can influence you in ways so that it's harder for you to hold your own agency.
Yeah. Like the salesperson today, I saw that it would be very easily, if I'm not grounded, to go for the deal. I will still be paying the same. I get a tablet and all that stuff, but
yeah. I mean, that's how they work, right? Is
Yeah.
that they know that there's a you play the odds. There'll be, out of the 100 people you talk to, 5 to 10 of them will fold, and those are the 5 or 10 you're looking for.
Yeah.
I remember once my mom came home from this sales pitch, and she cried for like 2 hours. And the sales pitch was someone, and they basically did the typical, if you come and listen to our sales pitch for 2 hours, then we'll give you a free trip or free something. You get something free, but you have to stay for the 2 hours to listen to the pitch. And the people are trained to just be monsters. So to say no is so uncomfortable, especially if you have any aspect of people pleasing, that they'll know that they'll convert a certain percentage. And so she came back, and I think she said no. And it was so unbearable for her that she cried for just the hours afterwards. It was that much of a pressure sale. And they really are, they're nasty. I mean, they do the same. If you've ever gone, which you probably haven't, but if you ever go to Florida, then they have these people that they're selling timeshares, and they'll ask you to join a meeting, and then they're going to give you free tickets to Disneyland, which I think is the funniest thing, because you go on vacation and then you put yourself in the most uncomfortable situation on vacation so that you get free tickets. But by the time you get those tickets, you have such a bad experience, you don't even enjoy your time at Disneyland anymore. You know, that's it.
So I'm also getting from you that it's not about judging one way or another. It's always with us, at least hiding awareness as to what we're doing and being transparent with it.
Yeah, that's it. And then I think the danger is when arrogance creeps in, and when you think you always know better.
Oof.
That's dangerous. Last week, I don't know if I told you, I had a rough call. I was coaching somebody, and I was helping them with a job interview, but I wasn't really tracking where they were emotionally, as if, did they really want the job to begin with? So I was preparing them for the interview itself by giving them a mindset, giving them clear kind of parameters and ways to interact. And but what I wasn't checking in with is even if they should take the interview to begin with. So they did the interview. It didn't go well for the reason that they really didn't, like, the job wasn't a match for them. And afterwards, I realized that I was so fixated on helping them prepare for the interview that I really wasn't tracking if they should do the interview to begin with. And it was nice for me, because in a way I talked to them about it, and they didn't, if anything, they weren't concerned about that, but it didn't matter what they were concerned. I was more concerned about, where am I not grounding myself to see what's really going on here? Because I knew that there was a lack of confidence, but instead of saying to this person, do you really want the job? Which could have been a very a good question to have asked. I said, well, here's how you got to get it. If you're going to do this, you can't go in with that mindset. It was like I was pushing I was pushing towards a positive instead of embracing the energy I was also feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the humility that I think.
Taking responsibility.
And taking responsibility, yeah.
And then you create trust.
Yeah. And then, of course, when emotions come up, then people know you'll hold them with love and not use it as a tool. Yeah. Nothing's worse than when your emotion and the person says, "See, I told you." Like, if the emotions come up and they're associated with something deep in your past, and maybe someone has an inkling of knowing that, and when they come up, they use that against you. That's one of the worst experiences I can imagine. told you it was all about your dad, Bambos.
Yes, I think the biggest lesson I've had from you on my journey to being a facilitator has been holding space without needing it to be anything, right?
Yeah.
And so what that did for me is I might have a structure or some things I want to do, but if I meet the circle of people that I'm working with, and I see, oh, actually what I have prepared is not relevant for them,
Yeah.
throw it away and meet them where they are. And
Yeah.
that's really worked beautifully for me, to the point where I don't even want to create structure anymore.
Yeah. That's hard. I've noticed that's what I do, but I know if I do anything in a corporate environment, there's a big need for some structure.
Yeah. They need to see it to know that
Yeah.
to know that you are legit.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like a graduate, like a diploma. I needed my first job, and I need a diploma to prove that I can have my job. Right. That's the use of a university at the moment. But yeah, it was funny because I did a day session at Phillips, and I said, they said, well, tell us what you're going to do, and I basically said, well, we're going to address all the problems you're having. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to live an example of how I want them to live, and then we're going to show through the example how to do that. And then their brains are kind of like, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to ask them, what are the biggest problems you're facing? And then I'm going to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? And then we're going to engage. And it was really, it was a really fun day. Like it was kind of like, because I've noticed when things are organic in a session, people feel far more engaged because they know that they're not following a funnel of what you've already prepared. They're part of this journey with you. So, yeah, I really do love that kind of work. And I see, going back to our session, is that the group will be as vulnerable as you are vulnerable if they see that the environment is safe.
Yeah. And
I notice in a lot of trainings, like they'll list on a board, there's 5 things you have to have: safety, we don't talk over one another. Like there'll be like the list, but listing it is different than being it. So I've seen people say safety is important, but in the trainings themselves, they haven't actually shown that behavior.
Yeah, or vulnerability.
Yeah.
I remember our shows in the beginning. I needed our guests to be vulnerable.
Oh my God.
I just fucking laugh at that. His reaction is priceless.
That was hard for me sometimes because the guest would call me after the show and they'd apologize
for not being vulnerable.
They'd say, I'm sorry. You tell Bambos, I'm sorry. I couldn't be more vulnerable.
That was a breakthrough for me because back then I was judging people that were...
You'd say heady. You call them heady.
I call them heady, even like speaking from here and not really embodying what they were saying. Yeah. And I would see that something wrong. And it, I don't know where it shifted from.
Oh, we had talks about it because I mean that was some of those challenging in the first 100 shows. There were difficult moments. I mean, there was one time when we had the show when I said, if you're going to show up like that, I don't want you to show up anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, that was we had some hard talks.
Again, context.
Yeah.
COVID, my business going, like hard times also because I was not being embodied myself.
Yeah.
I was running out of money. Business hit me really hard during COVID. So
but like, let's also be clear. Anyone who's watched the show, people watching the show now won't know what we came from.
Yeah.
Anyone that's been with us the last 280 some odd shows, right, then they'll know that those shows you were fully bearing your soul. So in a weird way, it was also a bit strange for us to invite guests. I mean, there were guests on the show when we were facilitating, like a guest who we didn't know would come on our show and they would then be coaching you. How random is that? And that's what we were doing. So we were inviting something that was really not not normal by what podcast standards would be.
Yeah.
And you allowed that, which speaks to the amount of vulnerability that you actually embody and allowed. It's astounding.
Yeah, I can start crying right now just feeling into that.
Yeah.
That was hard times for him, man.
Yeah.
You put up with a lot.
Well,
that's what I would call holding space.
Yeah. But I mean, I in that case, it would be progressive. So of course I need to create space for you. But then there was the mentor side, which is like, I need to set a boundary here, because if the behavior doesn't change, you won't evolve to see that this is actually not necessarily appropriate to tell a guest that they're not emotional, or whatever, like those are the times where it can happen once and I can bite my tongue. I'm like, no, we got to kind of have a talk around this just to sort of make sure this doesn't. But I mean,
yeah,
who you were then and now, they are very different. And the one notorious show that we did, that the guy, the coffee guy,
100 coffees with 100.
Yeah, the guy who still does not understand me at all, right? Like just totally incapable of understanding what really transpired that day. That show was quintessentially a breakthrough of what I see you were still holding on to in order to like overcome really being free in your life.
Our volume is low.
Yeah.
Patrick, like Gali.
Oh yeah, Patrick. Sorry about that, Patrick. I don't know what we can do. We're
we didn't bring our mics.
Yeah, we're winging it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sabbatical show.
You can turn your volume up. What are you gonna say, Bambos?
I love it.
Oh, I think you're gonna say asshole.
Yeah, I think that show really.
But you got what that show was for me, which was hard for people maybe to realize, was an area where if you look at like how I live with you or with anyone, when an individual is defending their own identity.
I was fighting for my life on that show. It's called 1,000 Coffees.
Oh, yeah.
You're 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Yeah, I think people have a hard time understanding it still.
Really?
Yeah, because out of context, they have to watch all these shows to see where we came to get there.
Yeah.
Now, and the humor is that if I watch the show, I can see where what you were saying was correct. Like what you were saying in terms of your defending of who you were was not in question.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what was the thing that you were feeling under was the needing to hold on to the identity.
Needing to hold on to the identity, needing to protect part of myself.
So on that show, he lovingly crushed my identity, and for a lot of people that was
not easy to watch.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that the let's see, Pat just wrote something just to make sure. Yeah, we're recording at home now. Yeah, it was hard to watch, but I guess that's that point of getting back to the show, this re-traumatizing versus holding space. There is a fine line, because in a way, when another person's charged, it is easy to step back and give them more and more space.
Yeah.
And there's a dance. When do you say, no, I'm holding you accountable now because we've done this long enough that this is no longer acceptable? Or where is it like, no, they just need space to heal?
Yeah.
And that's a dance. You really, yeah.
It's not a black and white thing.
No, it's not. And you got to, and as the person taking the responsibility, you need to be reflective of that.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, that was the right thing to do. No, instinctively you do stuff and you have to think, okay, how else might I have done it? Yeah. Without judgment, of course. Yeah.
As you know, I've said 100 times to you, I'm deeply grateful for that moment. That was difficult for me to receive, but that must have been equally as difficult for you to be there in that moment.
Yeah.
To hold that space.
Yeah, it was. After that, I had to admit I didn't really want to do the show after that, because I thought, it's like I give my love and I see that it isn't not only seen, it's now judged. Like I was thinking, why do I need that in my life? Right? Not like this was bringing me business or anything. So I was like, why do I need that in my life?
Yeah.
And I think in a way, it was also good because we slowly stopped doing Wonderful Chaos as often as we did. And I do see it opened up new opportunities that I wasn't inviting in because I was occupying myself with these shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's been nice as well. Yeah. Oh, you can't not hear us at all now. That's interesting.
Bulelang, can you hear us? Because
Yeah.
maybe it's Patrick's.
Yeah. Usually Bolalang will give us fair warning if we're, yeah.
He's having electric. If I see 7 people watching us, let us know if you can hear us.
Yeah,
please.
just send us a message and let us know.
So we know if it's a universal thing or. Mic is working fine.
Yeah. Sweet. Thanks, Bolalang. Yeah. It would be nice because Bolalang, you know that you've been there really the whole journey. So it would be great to see if you just type in like how you've experienced Bambos and myself, but I would say Bambos more because he really owned it on the show, like how you've seen him from the initial shows to where we are now. What you see as the difference would be really sweet to hear. Yeah, I experience you very different. And I think you'll also see I interact with you differently.
Yeah.
What do you see differently? How do you see ways I would have maybe interacted with you before and how I interact with you now?
More as an equal.
Yeah.
I'm kind of wanting to go back to our subject of trauma.
Yeah.
I did a tantra workshop a long time ago, and back then I was really not grounded, but I was grounded enough to walk out of that place.
Mm-hmm.
I left the workshop.
Yeah.
But I was noticing facilitator using the workshop to be intimate with the women.
Yeah.
And with men, because he was, and I really didn't feel comfortable. And I was in this, in my brain, this is a very conscious space, and no one is actually seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And everyone had their reasons. Oh, he's trying to break our taboos. And I was like, yeah, but there's something, I'm feeling something. And I couldn't put words back then. But when I look back, I was sensing into the intentions, and I really didn't feel safe. As a man even. And later on, when the hashtag movement, his name came up.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So that for me was
validation of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and think about all the times in life when other people were in situations where women were being treated in a way and it was normalized or accepted, and imagine how much harder it made because they didn't have someone like you saying this is nonsense.
Yeah, and I was put in that space when, like when I had the opportunity to speak up later on in another retreat, I spoke up. But it was so funny that the women who were also sensing it, because when I spoke up, I checked in with them, and they're like, "Yeah, we're feeling something also."
Yeah.
But when I spoke up, they kind of justified because they didn't want to create trouble because he also is a great guy. He really does bring a lot of value, but the fact that in the end I got kicked out, that really didn't do me justice.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've seen is it's the weirdest thing is my mentor Case, who of course I mention often, he would always say something that I really loved. It was like, the one thing that people don't consider is that in every spiritual practice, 90% of the things that they do or say make sense. So say, I'm not questioning the 90%. I'm actually saying no to the 10%, because it's funny because you can say that all that 90% makes all the sense in the world, but that 10%, it actually then is part of that 90. So I've often found it hard when these coaches or trainers that create kind of cult-like followings is that you really can't say that everything they do is bad.
Yeah.
And you can't say that even the way they approach it doesn't serve a population within the group they're serving. So it could be out of the 100, 70% are really, really served without the trauma.
Yeah.
But that 30% often will be blamed for the trauma that's created. That's the really sad part that I've witnessed. The trainers don't say, hey, apparently the way I'm engaging them isn't meeting them in a way that helps them grow. Where they say, no, they're not showing up vulnerably. They're defending as if it's their, as if they have any other option.
Yeah.
I noticed that in my own journey, because, I spent 30 years, pushing down my own trauma. And what I saw was that it was really hard for me to trust. And since I was so attuned to very, very subtle energy, if anyone would try to push me faster than I was comfortable going, then my boundaries would pop up very fast. And I would be, like, hey, I'm not interested. So I'd often protect myself by seeing these sort of hidden needs or wants of others and just say, no, I don't accept that. That's how I protect myself, actually. So it took me a lot of years to learn how to let my guard down, to allow the trauma to come in and be present with it for myself and not need the other person to do or anything with it. That took a lot of years.
Yeah.
Because I was protecting myself and not wanting to expose myself to someone who I didn't trust. So I used the distrust of them so that I didn't need to go into my dark spaces. Yeah. I know that for a lot of years. And I'd get angry at some of them who would then start blaming me because I wouldn't go where they needed or wanted me to go when they themselves weren't being vulnerable. I think we talked about that several times, of course. So if you really want someone to be vulnerable, be an example of the vulnerability with the other person instead of blaming them for not being vulnerable, which is obviously not vulnerable. Yeah. I've seen that happen.
We've also then shown vulnerability, right?
A lot of them on vulnerability. Yeah, because even vulnerability, when
as an idea that it's the way, is also
or authenticity, right? You have some, I don't know, Tom.
Actually, Tom is the one that suggested this show.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. So that resonates with him. Yeah. It's really subtle and it's very, very hard to overcome because you can always outsmart the other person. You can always see a subtle thing that they're not seeing in themselves that you use as a way to not to go into your own pain.
Yeah.
And Bolalang, he says, when in answer to the question, what is it that he witnesses you from the beginning till now, the maturity of great proportions, exclamation point.
Nice, thanks, Bolalang.
No, don't take that off. I see you wanted to pop that off too quickly. What comes up for you when you read that?
Oh, I was curious what he saw in you, actually.
Well, we'll get to me. What comes up for you when you feel into what the way you began the show and where you are today?
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah,
I experienced that.
Okay. How does it feel to be seen there?
I hope I don't have to live up to that.
I can't be mature again.
No, actually, just grateful, Bolalang. Thank you for seeing me.
And Bolalang, in Bambos' question, how would you say you've experienced me differently from the start of the shows we've been doing until now? What's the difference you see on that side?
Or anyone, actually.
What do you mean, anyone?
Oh, there's 6 people watching live.
Oh, yeah, true. I just assume Bolalang is the only one there. Riddling us with a question. We got Patrick McKay, but he came in a bit late into our game.
And he can't hear us.
Oh, yeah.
He's just watching
pantomiming characters. It was interesting. I had a client recently. Oh, sorry.
It just hit me. Holding space is really that. When I see someone suffering or crying or really being explosive, there's the holding space that I have right now is like just take a really slow, deep breath and really be with them, and actually really, like, it's almost like I can feel them feeling what they're feeling,
Yeah.
and staying in the helplessness, and the fact that I don't do that, or I need them to change, actually gives them the opportunity to move through whatever they need to move through.
Mm. Yeah.
And sometimes if I had a workshop and someone's been shut down, holding space for the shutdown has been equally powerful, just being with it.
Mm. Yeah.
In fact, at some point they start crying, and again, to point out they didn't need to get to that
Sure.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the breakthrough. And
You
in response, Bolalong has answered the question.
And he says, I noticed you moving from being an authority figure to a friend. Beautiful.
Which it has been. Must have been weird for people to see me being an authority figure to you on the air. You know, we did shows on it, even our relationship, that show, just to make it clear. But I think it's just not easy for people to see one person mentoring another person, because in a way they say, I wouldn't want anyone doing that to me.
Yeah.
They project it immediately on themselves. Like, hey, I wouldn't want anyone telling me how to live my life.
Yeah. Then keep living the way you're living.
Yeah. And if you're happy, you're happy, right? Yeah. Hmm.
You were going to share a story before I interrupted you so rudely.
Something about it, some client engagements that I've been having. You know, not surprising, but I've often seen that when I'll be working with clients and the emotions come up. I mentioned earlier that I notice that I don't treat those as breakthrough moments. They're just another moment we're having, and then I'll sort of allow the person to ground, and then either let them like reflect on what just happened,
Yeah.
or let it just be a moment that then is integrated and we go on with what we were doing before. So at least in terms of, it's also nice not just to say what not to do, but what I see myself doing is just letting it be a starting point for either continuing to discuss whatever came up, even asking sometimes, would you like to discuss what came up?
Yeah.
Or just say, okay, let's go back to whatever it was we were doing before. I've noticed that way of treating the emotion lightly and lovingly creates a lot of safety, because people don't feel like in being emotion, I hijack and now we have to go into this now.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, it's at the dance, and we can just let the emotions sort of move through our contact. Yeah, I noticed that on some of my meetings, when I'm in a meeting, I'll often ask questions which will even trigger people to cry. Not like just because the observer. So if you see someone that's shut down and you say, hey, listen, before we do anything, it looks like there's a lot going on. How are you right now? Like that'll be something I'll do in a meeting often. And then I've noticed that like people don't feel often seen. So to be seen is really an overwhelming experience. And then I'll see that the tears or a venting of a few minutes will happen. But what I see, what happens in it, is that people don't realize that they become kind of the leaders of the group, because by showing that level of vulnerability and just like letting it go, it would have lingered in the air anyways. So the meeting would have always been a little bit off, because people would sense this person isn't really there.
Yeah.
I remember meetings where it was like someone said, my dad died yesterday or something. No one else knew. And they were going into the meeting not sharing that. Those are the kind of things that I think, like, if you're not tracking that in a group, it's like, why am I here? So yeah, that's a. Both along writes something really sweet, by the way, which I really think is really nice to read out. My love for the show is how I saw myself in both of you at different times and learned from you.
Hmm.
That's really sweet. Yeah. You notice a lot of people who came on the show who had a harder time accessing their emotions. They really appreciated you because they saw things in you that they couldn't do with themselves. For years, well, not for years, probably before, but on the show at least, that was a big breakthrough actually.
Yeah.
Like to see that as a strength and not as a something you judge. Yeah.
And I also remember on our shows when there were moments where we'd talk about something, or I guess we'd share something really heavy,
Hmm.
and I'd feel the emotion, and then we start talking about something else, and it would be like, "Hey, slow down here."
Yeah.
Something happened, and all of a sudden, the show was used as a space for the individual to release.
Yeah. Yeah, you did that really, really well on a lot of shows. Like I saw there was a tipping point in some of the shows where we hit this moment, and I'd say, you know what, I'm not going to take it the next one. I'll let them, keep that to themselves. And then you'd go and ask that next question. It was like, okay, now you went there, and I would sort of sit here like, oh Jesus, he did go there, like I knew it, and I was like, okay, I'll just let that stay. I mean, there's about 4 of those shows where I realized if you didn't ask the question and move it into a much more intimate space, then the show would have been very superficial.
Hmm.
Do you remember some of the shows? You don't really remember the shows either. I remember that there were moments.
The woman that was in a religious cult.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mean. Was that the one? Or is there? We did a few religious cult movies.
There was sexual abuse in there.
Yeah.
That moment.
Yeah. It's fascinating how much religion came into our show without really planning it. Like I would never think I want to become an avenue for people who want to vent on their religious experiences, but that really did.
We attracted a lot of people.
Yeah, that were recovering from the trauma of religion. Yeah, which is hard because I mean, in a weird way, I see religion has its role. It's great for the people who are practicing, and it serves them. It's great, but in many of the instances of guests that came on, it didn't serve them. And creating a platform just to have a dialogue with them, I also saw was potentially saying, "Oh, we're anti something," right? Like as if that would be my message to the world. Yeah.
Yeah, we were very careful not to take sides. I think there were a couple of shows where we felt we had to talk about certain subjects.
Yeah.
But I saw there was what was it?
I remember doing the show on race relations in America with Jane Elliott when she was supposed to come on, and then we got her for like 10 seconds.
Yeah. No, there was another show where you actually felt really strong and actually taking a side.
What was that?
I forgot what that was.
That was the one.
No. But there was one show where you really took a side.
Do you remember what the concept or topic was?
No.
Okay. Yeah. It might have been to counter what somebody else was saying as well, just to kind of, one thing I know is when you evolve in how you look and see the world, you see that you can shift the context and immediately see it true in a whole nother light.
Yeah.
And it's a trick, I mean, it's what they teach you in debate school when you're in high school. They say, we're going to have you argue one side of the case and we're going to have you argue the other side of the case, and you're going to do them equally well. And I think in a way, one thing that's been sad for me in looking at society is I don't see people looking and discerning equally what each side is saying and deciding what's the context. And that's the kind of painful reality, or the evolution of social media, where distribution of information is so free, and the ability to assimilate it and to judge it or assess it more, I don't know what you call it, but using more judicious means is lost. Opinions are as big or as important as facts, and there's good reason for it, because we see statistics there's lies, dirty lies, and statistics. So you can manipulate anything to make a narrative. So I understand that, and yet critical thinking is hard to see these days.
Yeah.
Bolalong says something here. I appreciate the events that led me to a wonderful chaos. It was time well spent.
1 hour a day.
Yeah. Well, Bolalong, I think you know, obviously, that part of us doing it for as long as we did was knowing you were there. It was sort of like, what happens if we don't show up today? What's Bolalong going to do? So in a way, there's a lot of gratitude on this end for making it all feel worthwhile. And just knowing you were there was actually giving me a lot of inspiration.
I think my favorite moment is when Bolalong appeared on your birthday, when you and Ronnie did a show.
Wasn't that
and
beautiful?
Out of the blue, he came up with his wife.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I saw Bolalong live.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my 50th birthday. The 50th show was my 50th birthday, which was kind of cool, wasn't it?
Very cool, Andy. So this is our last show for this year.
Well, it is probably our last show for this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you all for being with us. It feels since we only doing these 2 shows for this moment, there's a specialness to it because it doesn't like get swallowed up in the 10 shows we're doing or the 30 shows or 40 shows we do in a month. So
we will be reevaluating next year how we want to create space for this, because it's definitely a joy to do it, but not every day.
Not every day. I don't think that'll ever happen again. Who knows? But maybe there's a lockdown and all of a sudden we say, Bambos, nothing better to do. Just keep us going.
Work on your farm, Andy. Work on your farm.
Yeah, I'll be cutting trees down. That's what I'll be doing. We see you some point in the future. We don't exactly know when. On
A wonderful
K.
Boss.